Hello and welcome to this week's edition of WCS GameDay. I'm your co-host, Jeremy Qualls, and with me as always is co-host Tate Mathews. We're going to talk about last week's action in football and this week's action in football. And man, we had probably the most epic game of the year, game of the week, being Ravenwood and Franklin showdown. We'll get more about that later. But before we start, let's talk about going into the TWSAA state tournament in volleyball. Right now, Brentwood is rolling a 57-game winning streak into the state tournament.
Rolling, a bunch of them have been against Ravenwood. Siegel, their only loss at the beginning of the season, they have gotten revenge on them in a game that they played a couple of weeks ago. And then they've just beaten everybody who's been in front of them, gone to the state tournament. They're going to see Siegel probably in the state tournament, so that's going to be fun to watch. They are, without a doubt, the team to beat, and I don't see them getting beat in the state tournament. They are playing really well right now.
Well, the WCS Sports Conference is putting 3 teams in the state championship, which is awesome. We got in our Division I ranks, we have Ravenwood and, as you mentioned, Brentwood. Right now, Ravenwood sitting at 23-16. They open up with Siegel, who is 47-2. And Siegel right now is currently ranked 19th in the country. But Ravenwood, running the conference, that schedule that they run is about like the SEC Football West right now, when you have to play Centennial, who had a good year, and play Brentwood more than once.
Right.
Actually played them 4 times in the districts, regions, and and the more exposure you get with those teams, as you know, the more battle tested you are. And anything can happen. I find that an interesting matchup. Ravenwood 23-16 versus Siegel. I know that Siegel has had a good run this year as well, but I wouldn't sleep on Ravenwood in that game. Brentwood opens 57-1 versus Dobbins-Bennett, 32-16. The action starts on Wednesday at Siegel High School over in the Rutherford County area. Brentwood is currently 5th in the nation as Matt's Prep's top 25 teams.
That's amazing. We've had some soccer teams ranked national champions at Franklin, a boys team and a girls team. We've had some basketball through the years, not that high, but I mean, number 5 in the nation. That's great for Brentwood High. It's great for the Williamson County Sports Conference, and it's well-deserved. Again, they've lost 1 game, and that's to the number 19th team in the country, and they came back and gave it back to them later on in the year.
And as they're going for their 10th state championship,
One for the thumb.
One for the thumb has been the battle cry, and that's once again is Brentwood High School going for their 10th state title in volleyball. And in Division II ranks here in WCS Sports Conference, we have our Page team, 34-15, that'll be opening up in the Class AA, TWSAA State Championship versus Signal Mountain. And I got a chance to watch Page last week in their region opening play. They end up playing Hickman County opening round and end up playing district foe CPA for the regional championship. And it really wasn't even a game. The first game against Hickman County, I think all 3 sets, you could take Hickman County score added up and maybe get 25. Page is impressive.
They are, and neat thing about it, Coach Rick Hess is his first year as the head coach at Page. He spent the last few years, or several years, as Tracy Berry's assistant at Ravenwood. So obviously he picked up a lot. And Page has a very successful history in volleyball too. Tracy Berry won at least 3 or 4 state championships there at Page. But picking up where she did at Ravenwood, he's taken that over to Page, and they're impressive. I think they've got a really good chance to win the state championship too.
Impressive history is an understatement. From 2004 to 2008, they won 4 straight. So if you were a freshman on that team, you won 4 rings in your high school career. But Page has a rich history. The WCS Sports Conference has a rich history. I look forward to seeing how we do. I would love to see nothing more than a Ravenwood-Brentwood awesome. State championship final, and Page winning it and us winning 2 out of 3. Since we don't have a single A team, unfortunately we can't put a single A team in, but AA and AAA, hopefully we have a WCS Sports Conference sweeping the volleyball championship.
Yeah. Well, and it was a Ravenwood-Brentwood final last year, and I happened to be at the Brentwood High-Ravenwood game, and I was standing with Brentwood principal Kevin Caudill and his assistant athletic principal Randy Hatley, and they were getting text message updates, and I promise you, Brentwood was winning that game at the time. They were more excited about that volleyball game than they were the football game. So it just goes to show they take it serious too.
Once again, WCS Sports Conference going to the TWSAA State Championships in volleyball, and that will take place on Wednesday of this week. Let's talk about Week 8. Last week in football, we had some fantastic game of the year by the matter of fact. But we're going to start with the opening game there, Brentwood versus Summit. Old Sparty went in. Tell you what, it was a pretty close game early. This has kind of been the motif that we've seen all year with Summit. They're hanging in there, and all of a sudden something happened and the wheel coming off and the other team's putting on the points. The final of that game was 30-7. Brentwood moves to 2-2, 2-6 in the district. What do we know about that game?
You're right. It was close at the beginning, and what has had to happen every week for Summit, they just can't turn the ball over. They are playing so hard. The things that the other coaches are saying about Coach Coleman and his staff and his kids, I mean, they could not give them higher praise. But they're banged up, they're injured, and they can't turn the ball over, and they're at a disadvantage going into the game to begin with. They hang tight for the half, and then Brentwood, it started snowballing on them. Carson Croy played great, 280 total yards, quarterback for the Bruins, and 2 total touchdowns. But it just got away from them. They're outmanned right now, and that's what keeps happening every week. But they're playing very, very hard.
Well, we've talked a lot about the wing tee offense. We know that the wing tee offense creates a time management system, if you will. So it tends to take that time off the front end. They can kind of keep the game close, but if they ever get behind, then they have to start pressing the issue, and it may not work out as possible. But the hat's off to Coach Coleman and his staff, Sarah Lamb and her admin staff at the culture that Summit has. Old Sparty right now has an unbelievable following in the Summit squad. Those kids are showing up. They have a great turnout. They have the originality of throwing the dust up in the air. They have at the last game, they went out onto the field, giving those guys a pat on the back, knowing that they still love them. And right now, I appreciate the fact that the Summit squad and their culture at their school are doing a great job. And those power rankings for the student sections are coming out soon. And the originality and the way they travel and the class right now, Summit squad right now has top end of classiness from their student section.
Oh yeah, they love it. They're doing a great job with it, and the kid and that the kids appreciate it too. That makes them feel good that they're all there supporting them and sticking around till the end of the game to congratulate them after the game. It's neat to watch. I love watching all these student sections. You've created something pretty good there. They're taking it very serious. Who's number one?
Well,
maybe more serious than the football.
I'm getting tweets all the time. They're wanting to see the power rankings. We're still collecting data on that, so stay with me on that. But it's those kids have gone all out. I mean, we've got at Ravenwood, you're talking about the biggest section of all of them as far as sheer size. And Franklin is the best, the one that travels the best. It takes the most with them on the away games. And Centennial's got some original things. And our student sections are really second to none. They've taken pride in it. Don't forget that the Jackets are stinging out there, and the Patriot Nation, the Pats, man, they all have their own little niche. And it's really fun to watch. We had homecomings last week at Page, and we'll talk more about that here in a minute. And they take pride in what's going on. And like you said, I think we've created a monster. But I really enjoy watching them take pride in their schools, their culture, and their teams.
I do too.
Moving on, let's talk about Centennial had the bye last week. Centennial sitting at 7-1, 3-1, tied for second place in the district, in the region. And, they're probably nursing some things there, getting some rest, going into a big game, bouncing back with the Dixon game, which is a good game to come off a bye with. We'll talk more about that in the second segment. But Indy versus Dixon, the Indy Nation. Now, here's a group right here. We're talking about student sections that went down to Marshall County and was beating trash cans over on the side, painted up with war paint. I love it. The Indy Nation's rocking right now. They travel well. They had their homecoming, and I got to go out and experience with Dr. Campbell out there watching their Ty Campbell and their homecoming. Had a great environment happening there. Indy rolled Dixon 49-7.
They did, and they looked really, really good. They were sharp. Andrew Bunch, their standout quarterback, 9 for 10, 260 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had at least 1 rushing touchdown, maybe 2. Second play of the game, I don't know if anybody saw it on the news later on that night, slant route to Nate Johnson. He took it all the way to the house. He is a nice receiver. I know Van Jefferson and Emmanuel Hall get most of the most of the publicity, and they should. Nate Johnson is a very, very good receiver. So they just played real well. Dom Childress, their Navy commit running back, over 100 yards. Everything was clicking. I thought the neat thing was Coach Blade got to play 3 quarterbacks. Brendan Mathews, who's their second stringer, he went 6 for 7 for 99 yards. And then Hunter Woosley, the third stringer, went 2 for 3. So everybody only threw 1 incomplete. I'd say the passing game's in good hands with the Eagles. And again, those 3 losses they had are against 3 of the better teams in the state. Don't sleep on Indy, too. If they can just make it to the playoffs, which I think they will, they could go like they did last year, make a long run.
Now, we have talked about the 4 horsemen. And I'm telling you right now that the Indy Nation is right there amongst the best teams in the state. They proved it against Blackman, even though they came up 1 point short. And, the Centennial game could have gone either way. And it was back and forth. Indy has already proven they don't have to. They're not going to be able to slip up on anybody else. I mean, Indy is going to cause some serious problems come playoff time for somebody, and I still think they're going to beat somebody maybe that the public views that they're not supposed to beat. But Coach Blade does a fantastic job. They've had some nicks, some bumps and bruises along the way as far as players getting hurt and injured, but I think they're getting back to full capacity. This was a great bounce-back game for those guys because at this point in time, they lost 2 of the big games for those guys. Emotionally, they could have been all over the mountain. They came back 49-7, big win. It moves them to 5-3, 2-2. Once again, you mentioned that their record is fool's gold. The losses coming to Blackman and Ravenwood, early on, and Centennial. So,
which between those 3, there's only 1 loss, and that's Centennial's. Ravenwood's undefeated, Blackman's undefeated.
That's right. Once again, Indy versus Dixon. That moves Indy to 5-3, 2-2 in the district. Moving on, our District 2 guys. We're looking at Division 2 guys, Fairview coming in versus Hickman County. Hickman County had a lot to lose in this game. Hickman County coming in with an opportunity at 6-1 to solidify their district championship there. Camden lost that night. They beat Fairview and have to beat the district opponent Waverly to win. But don't sleep on the Jackets. Jackets came in, put a hammer on Hickman County, 41-28. What do we know about that game?
Same thing. When they're healthy, they're going to score a lot of points. Probably the offense is going to have to carry them the rest of the season and into the playoffs. But this was big for them. Hickman County had a chance to win the district, like you said. This keeps their playoff hopes alive. It really keeps them close in the hunt. So all they got to do is take care of business the next couple of weeks, and they're in. But what we talked about, they're another one that suffered some injuries. They're getting healthy again now, and you can see when they're healthy, they're going to score 35, 40 points, which that gives you a chance to win every time. Like we talk about every week, they go as their quarterback, Hunter Zimmerman goes. He played really well. They won.
Well, you've been singing Hunter Zimmerman's praises all year long. You know what the score was at halftime? 28-14. Final score 41-28. Jackets were stinging. Congratulations to those guys.
Swarming.
They were swarming. They're stinging. They handled that second half very well. Hunter Zimmerman played well. They roll Hickman County 41-28 to move to 5-3 overall. Congratulations to Fairview. The other Division II guys for WCS Sports Conference Page, the Patriot Nation, homecoming versus Cascade. I talked to Coach Rathbone going in. He was, Cascade can put up some points and put them up in a hurry, but Page they never let them in the game.
Yep.
It was pretty much over from the beginning.
They played very well, and here's what I like about this. If you remember, Page had to beat Forest in overtime. Cascade thumped Forest, and then Page comes back 42-13. Like you said, they were never in the game. Page is playing really well. Remember, when you're looking at this record, they've got 2 losses. That's to Marshall County and CPA. CPA's look like they're headed straight to the state championship for a crash course with Alcoa, and then Marshall County, one of the better teams too, like we talked about. They've lost to CPA. They lost to Independence, a bigger school. So Page's 2 losses are against 2 of the better teams in the state. They're playing really well right now, and we keep talking about quarterbacks. We got so many good quarterbacks in this county. They have one, Michael Magochi. He's just what he's done this year. He is putting up huge numbers, playing very well, and obviously he played very well Friday night.
Well, it's like you said earlier. It's just like Independence. I equate them to Independence. I mean, right now they have the 2 losses, and everybody was kind of down on them because they played those 2 teams early on in the district year, and they fell behind the 500 mark early on. But don't sleep on Page. Matter of fact, you take away a fumble or a turnover against Marshall County, that score could have been different too. So Page has gotten better. They're going to continue to get better. Don't sleep on the Patriots. I mean, because coming time for playoffs, they're going to make somebody upset.
That's right.
And that means that Page rolled on Cascade 42-13 to get a homecoming win. When we come back from break, we're going to talk about the most epic showdown of the year right now between Franklin and Ravenwood. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
My name is Ethan, and this is my book, Stories of the Clone Wars Adventure. I chose this book because it has lots of action and funny parts in it. And one day my mom just got this for me, and I liked it. I think lots of people would like this because it has lots of fighting and action and a lot of cool stuff in it.
Welcome back to WCS Game Day. I'm your co-host, Jeremy Qualls. With me, as always, is Tate Mathews. Tate, let's talk about the best game of the year so far up to this point. We knew going in that it was going to be this way. They were on a collision course, undefeated in the district. Franklin traveling to Ravenwood, which is right now has the ultimate home field advantage because their student section, their crowds are second to none. We're looking at 7,000 people in attendance. It's deep, 3 deep all the way around the field. Things are happening. Right now, Ravenwood, going into that game, had 3 shutouts. Their opponents' scoring per game were at 5 points per game. Both offenses were averaging 31, and Franklin with 37 points per game. Something had to give.
That's right. And it was the Ravenwood holding the points down. Obviously, Franklin scores 29, which they had only given up 41 points in the previous 7 games. But that's because Franklin's offense is really, really good. We're going to talk more about it, but there were a lot of big-time players in this game, and just about every single one of them showed up big time. It was fun to watch, and Ravenwood scored. Really, what it came down to, Ravenwood scored 7 more points than Franklin did.
Well, I knew whoever had the ball last was probably going to end up winning that thing. I hate to be cliche, but that's kind of the way it did. We had 2 ties late in the game, kind of flip-flopping back and forth. The flash bulbs and the glitz and the glamour are always been on the offensive side of the things for both teams. We had Critchlow on one side, who's a high-power weapon. Of course, on the other side, all we talk about is Austin Pershing. Of course, Van Jefferson, the Georgia commit. And Van had a pretty good game. He came in the game. He had 9 catches, 265 yards. They had 360-yard totals offense receiving against against Franklin. And his long of the night was 90 yards. And that is the WCS TV Play of the Week. Watch it right here.
Brown, the handoff. Oh! Jefferson in space.
He's going to make some people miss right here.
They get a block.
Man alive.
Katera got caught. There's another block.
Another block in the back.
Jefferson trying to turn the corner. And that, my friends, is going to make a 90-yard touchdown pass and catch.
And you got a player like that. It doesn't matter where you're out on the field. Just get him the ball.
A game changer, play changer.
Be off the play action, and initially right there almost looks like he's got tipped, but Jefferson, there is no one around him within 10 yards.
And Gonzalez, I think, is trying to going to try to shoestring it. That's not going to work out.
No, and then another great move by Jefferson, and then Katera, I believe, is right there. He's going to get hit, and he goes down. And then Jefferson just turns on the speed, and you can another huge block. I think that was in the back, though. And but, man alive, look at the speed and space.
Yeah, and he just runs away from the Franklin defender. I think that's Zach Beam.
Yeah, and
Kyle Evans.
Yeah, who is a good athlete. Just gets turned around, doesn't have a chance there. Great job, and you see why that young man's going to Georgia. He's going to be scary on Saturdays.
That just goes to show right there. We've talked about Emmanuel Hall. We've talked about Van Jefferson. That's why these guys are SEC commits. They have another gear. They had another level that nobody else has. And that play right there was absolutely amazing.
Well, what was neat, the neatest thing about it to me was he catches that thing on about the 15, takes it 90 total yards, 85 yards on the ground. But Seth Rowland laying a block to keep the thing going. Austin Percy downfield, getting another big block to keep the thing going. That's what you want to see right there. Van making a big play, but your other big time players too, hustling downfield. Austin Percy comes all the way from the other side, makes a big block. Couldn't have done it without that. That's part of why they're sitting there at 8-0 right now.
That's absolutely right. And they have bought into this. They know that Van Jefferson is the money guy. And, it's like Austin Percy when I was talking to him today. I mean, it's one of those things where, hey, that's fine. Let him get his because that's going to open me up before it's, everybody's going to shift the focus towards Van Jefferson. You have Austin Percy there. We're going to spread you thin on that secondary coverage. And all of a sudden, here comes the quarterback. And he, Cole Brown right now, he's sitting at 14-25 for the game, 360 total yards. 0 interceptions, 1 touchdown, and his rushing right now, he had 39 yards, so it's probably not the best game for him, but he is an X factor that is so hard to prepare for.
Oh, yeah, and there was over 1,000 yards total offense in the game. So you sit there and you look at Cole, he had 360 passing yards, obviously 265 of them to Van Jefferson. Joe Critchlow had 305 passing yards. So it was a lot of offense. And a lot of fireworks all night long. Just a very, very fun game to watch and be a part of. Sorry that one of them had to lose.
You're correct. They had 4 touchdowns. Ravenwood had 4 touchdowns on rushes by 4 separate people. Seth Rowland, Chris Rowland, of course, we've been talking about them all year. Seth Rowland had the better of the night of the brothers. 17 attempts, 131 yards. Chris Rowland at 6 attempts, 29 yards. The quarterback, Cole Brown, 5 attempts on 39 yards. And Andrew Rappe had 3 attempts on 21 yards. So they all 4 scored touchdowns. And then you had your one long bomb that you just saw the play of the game by Van Jefferson on the receiving. So, even though Austin Percy doesn't score a touchdown, he still has 4 catches for 83 yards. So it's just so difficult to prepare for them. But the doctor of defense, Donnie Webb, did a fantastic job, gave themselves an opportunity to get in there. And I'm sure he's not going to be happy about giving up that amount of points. But I'm going to tell you right now, this is probably not the last time that these two teams meet.
Yeah, and the thing that I thought was most impressive, there was all those yards being scored, all those offensive plays. There was only 1 turnover in the entire game between the two sides. That was the very first possession. Ravenwood gets an interception on Joe Critchlow on the very first possession. That leads to a Seth Rowland touchdown. He goes in. They missed the extra point. So now it's 6-0, and that kind of set the tone in the first half of whether each of them were going for 2 or going to go for an extra point. But think about that. All those plays and only 1 turnover against 2 of the better defenses in the mid-state, maybe the state. So that just goes to show they both played really, really well. It was just 2 great football teams.
Ravenwood had 20 first downs. Franklin had 19 first downs. I mean, it was tip for tap the whole way. Let's talk about real quick on the defensive side of the ball. Ravenwood has flown under the radar defensively. Going into this game, only allowing 5 points per game on the opponent. That includes 3 shutouts. One of those is a low-scoring affair against Indy. I believe they allowed 7 points against Indy. And, here's Garrison Geronimus right now. 11 tackles, 1 for a loss. Jeb Stewart, 11 tackles. I mean, they're just being led up front by these guys on the defensive side of the ball that not a lot of people put a lot of, the glitz and the glamour on one side outweighs the defense.
They are, and you're right. It seems like every week you look at the stat sheet and Garrison Geronimus and Jeb Stewart are both right at about 10, 11, 13 tackles. They're playing great. I heard Dr. Defense, Coach Donnie Webb, say, I know they're called the no-name defense. He said, I don't know how you can be a no-name defense when you're only giving up 5 points a game. And I agree with him on that. They are they're a heck of a defensive unit. And, led by those 2, they play hard every single week. It's been like that for two years, and I expect to see that going on into the playoffs too.
That moves Ravenwood 8-0, 4-0 in the district. Franklin moves to 6-2 with that other loss coming from McGavick, who has been highly ranked out of Metro. 3-1 in the district. The district standings are as follows. Ravenwood sitting in first. Centennial Franklin tied at 3-1 each. Next would be Independence at 2-2, and Brentwood at 2-2. And then Dixon County at 1-4, and Old Sparty, unfortunately, coming into 0-5 right now. That has the district standings for 11 AAA. But these guys are going to battle it out. It's funny because they have reversed. Ravenwood has run the gauntlet early, if you will. They've already played Independence. They've played Centennial. Now they've played Franklin. Now Franklin is starting the bulk of their schedule. They've played Ravenwood now with that loss. They still have Independence coming up and Centennial. So this is going to be interesting. The four horsemen are going to have to bruise and black each other's eye before we figure out who's going to come in second and third and fourth, and especially it's going to have some implications to the state playoffs, which moves us up to this week, Brentwood versus Ravenwood. Battle of the Woods. This is always a long-standing rivalry between the two. Coming in at 8-0, 4-0, Ravenwood. Brentwood is at 2-6, 2-2. It's at Brentwood. Let's talk a little bit about that game.
Ravenwood's obviously the favorite, sitting there in 8-0, playing really good football. Like we just said, they play great defense and they don't turn the ball over with all that firepower. So Brentwood is got an uphill climb, but it's the battle of the wood, so you never know what's going to happen.
Two things not to figure that you have to figure into this. One is Brentwood still thinks they have playoff hopes. Okay, so they may be playing inspired ball. Number two, we know the past, the rich history between the Brentwood teams of Ravenwood and Brentwood. Not a lot of love lost there. So that's two factors that people are going to have to factor in when thinking about this game. Should be interesting. Ravenwood's got the firepower. We'll talk more about the predictions later. Centennial at Dixon. Good game to come off a bye. Centennial sitting at 7-1, 3-1 in the district. Dixon's 1-4. Once again, they've been bumped and bruised and getting back healthy. Coming in against Dixon, I think, is a good matchup for Centennial right off the bye week.
That bye week couldn't have come at a better time for Centennial after that huge win at Indy. They have more firepower than Dixon County. I think Centennial will go in there, take care of business, handle them pretty easily, and get ready for that huge Franklin game.
Okay, I think this is a big game. It's kind of gone under the radar all year long. Maybe it's not a build-up of the Ravenwood-Franklin, but Franklin versus Indy. This is going to be a close one to call right here. Franklin's going to come in. What kind of emotional state will they be after getting beat by Ravenwood? Indy coming off a big win at Dixon. They've already run their schedule right now is a gauntlet with Blackman being there. 5-3, 2-2 on the year. Of course, we've already talked about Franklin being 3-1 a district. This is an interesting matchup.
It is, and like we talked about, you got a guy like Nate Johnson who can take a ball 80 yards at any time of the game if you give him a seam. So that's always very scary. And you got a guy like Andrew Bunch who can get the ball to him. So I think this will be another one of those games where there's a lot of points scored.
I think so too, because right now Indy is fast moving. Like you said, in the efficiency rating of Critchlow right now, I think that has a very interesting matchup. Summit has the bye. Sparty will be at home getting ready for that next game the next week. Then we have our Division II rivals. Actually getting to play once a year they get together and play. They're not in the same district. Fairview versus Page. Be at Fairview. This is going to be a situation where Fairview is going to be coming in off a win. Of course, Page has been winning as well, but Fairview getting back healthy, going against Division II rival Page. Should be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, it's always good when these two get together, and I'm glad they play this game. Hey, the great thing, nothing playoffs. There's no playoff implications in it, just a great rivalry. Another one, two really good quarterbacks, so that'll be a fun one.
It will be a fun one, and can't wait to see it. All right, folks, it's our favorite time of the show. It's prediction time. Right now, Tate is wearing me out. He's sitting at 26-3. I'm sitting at 19-10. But I'm never going to give up. I'm going to keep fighting. Just like old Sparty, we're going to keep fighting this week. Let's start with the Battle of the Woods. Brentwood versus Ravenwood. Go. We got 60 seconds.
Until somebody beats him, I'm going with Coach Will Hester and the Ravenwood Raptors.
I do too. I don't care how many factors you put into it. I don't care if it's at Brentwood or where it is and who won last year and what they're trying to keep. Right now, Ravenwood's rolling. I hope to see them continue rolling in the state playoffs undefeated. Right now, I'm going to go with Ravenwood. Next, Centennial versus Dixon.
I'm going with Brian Rector and the Cougars. It's going to be a really good game. Deion Sanders is too much to hold down.
Hands down, Manuel Hall and that crew. Centennial rolls over Dixon big. Dixon can't handle them. Franklin versus Indy. This is an interesting one.
It's a tough one, but I'm going to go with the Rebels. Coach Webb gets them back. They're going to be ready to play. No letdown. It's going to be a high-powered one, but I'm going with the Rebels.
I'm saying close. I'm talking about a barn burner. I know that Franklin's got some things special going on this week. They have their Hall of Fame inductions going on out there this week. They have a little game day setup going on out there. Congratulations to those guys for doing that. I'm going to give the edge to the Rebellion. The Rebellion's going to be running. I'm going to give just a slight edge to Franklin, but that's going to be an interesting. Last but not least, Division II, Page Fairview, the Jackets. You'll have to find out later about that, and we're going to see you on that one later, okay? Thank you for coming today. Thank you for showing up. This is WCS Game Day, and reminding you, Williamson County, be nice.